Haptic Homes Selly Oak is a project that brings together disabled and non-disabled communities through stories of lived experience and just how people have been inspired by the moment of the games. The initial stage of the creative process was focused exploring communication, environments, and a gathering of ideas of the community and home, but making sure that access and inclusion was at the heart of the journey. Creativity and access have been intertwined and embedded throughout the whole of the project, with stories initially captured as tactile screen prints alongside Braille artwork, leading into an audio-described exhibition.
Haptic Homes has really been about working with Sense and working with Arts Forum Selly Oak to look at how we can put on art workshops for people that are blind or deaf, really to sort of have a bit of fun and engagement, using new practices, using new techniques. And I think what was really important and central to the project was making sure disabled artists were leading the workshops and leading the projects. I think unless you're working in that arena, you don't realise how important and valuable it is.
So when you come into the space on the right-hand side, there is a series of prints. The first ones you'll come across are in long white frames, and they are in bright colours from oranges to reds with negative white spaces. Next to them are a series of A4 prints embossed, and again there's a mixture of negative white spaces surrounded by beautiful colours. Then next to those prints are embossed tiles where it almost looks like the objects are inside the plaster tiles. And I also spoke to them about my own personal practice, which is a series of prints that show people what my perspective of the world is like, just to give them an insight into what being visually impaired is like, and everything's to be touched. I've worked for Sense on a number of projects, so I already knew Sonny. He contacted me and asked me if I was interested in working on the Haptic Homes project, and if I was interested in running some accessible workshops and then doing a creative response to those workshops. The work I've created for this project has been a series of monoprint workshops, so embossed monoprints, where you use recycled materials, water-based printmaking inks and a wooden printing press to create textured prints. I spoke to the participants and asked them what their sense of place was. For some of them, this was coming to Sense and having a coffee in their coffee mornings, meeting people, building friendships. And for other people, it was their gardens and going out for walks in nature. So they created prints out of plants and leaves, and then used that information to create my creative response. And what I learned was that all the participants liked to touch all the materials that were during the workshops. That was really important, that all the work in the exhibition was tactile and people could physically engage with the work. And it was also important for me that the participants' work was also incorporated into the exhibition and that their work was just as valued as the artists. I think it's important because Sense has employed 3 disabled artists who all have visual impairments to run the workshops and create the creative responses. I hope that anybody can just walk into my workshops at any venue and fully participate. And this Haptic Homes project was designed from start to finish to be inclusive, and access has been at the forefront of the whole project.
Just as you learn logos of society.
So the Decoding Braille, Decoding Me, I brought 6 pieces along. I chose the colours inspired by the Birmingham games and some words that are quite important. So some of them said engage, haptics, structure, memory, recite. And on them is the Decoding Braille. So you with sight can look at it and decode it through a key and learn Braille for colour association. And then someone who knows Braille can physically go up to the artwork and touch the artwork, because that's so important with my practice. You have to touch the art. What I made was 6 podiums. Each podium had the colour inspired by the Birmingham game, so you had pink, green and blue. And on the podiums was tactile pavement slabs, 50 by 50 centimetres, but in Braille, and they were sprayed in gold, silver and bronze. So you could physically stand on them or sit on them. And I think a lot of artists, when they're creating their work that can be touched, don't want people to touch because they're worried about obviously breakages. The idea of my artwork is if people are touching it and they're damaging it, if they damage it, It proves that the work's been engaged with. I can fix it, I can patch it up, I can create a new one. The artwork is precious to the person that's engaging with, and I think that's important. And art is for everyone. My ethos is art is for everyone. You don't have to have a degree at Oxford or Cambridge to understand art. You don't have to have loads of money to understand art. So I'm trying to break down the barriers of my art, and that's where touch really does come into its own, because touching it takes some of those barriers away as well. But my art's there to have fun and be engaged with.
Creating art is about interacting with each other, having dialogue, having conversations. But also I think it's about making sure when you're working in a non-visual way that you can introduce textures and materials. And I try to do that in my workshops. I mean, my work was about capturing what Fae and Clarke did, capturing the words and the conversations going on. So it was looking at the audio and the stories behind things that people were creating, but also thinking about the homes and the places that you love and spaces that you relax in and enjoy. You know, the sounds of the birds in your back garden. So then we tried to build that into the artwork. So to make audio pieces, even down to somebody just loving tropical things after they were doing a printmaking workshop, and then building the sounds of the tropics into some of the artwork so that when you press a button, you hear tropical noises, tropical birds. I mean, one of the things to think about how you might interact with an artwork, you can do that in a visual way, but also about touching things. So I use some really sort of soft materials, very finely soft carpet texture, feathers, a sort of really soft feel, like a feather down, you know, about the sort of things like cushions and beddings, to think about the trees and the landscapes and textures, other more harder textures in that piece of artwork. I use luggage labels, quite simple in a way, but people to add their favourite food, their favourite space, their favourite place, their favourite word, then putting that onto the artwork. So they're part of it. They feel that it's, you know, not just an artwork that they're walking past, but they are part of that artwork. When we all go into galleries and spaces where artwork is, it's quite removed from our natural everyday environments, and you have to sort of behave in a certain way. But actually I think it's about taking art back to people, back to where it should be, so people can interact with it. Sense and this space here is really trying to push the boundaries so that you can actually touch the artwork. You know, Sense was really keen that the people that come to see the artwork have access to the artist. And I think Sunny and everybody's really made sure that that can happen, just to give it that other edge really and make it make sense to people.
Birmingham 2022 Festival, Commonwealth Games, and Birmingham City Council, in partnership with Arts Forum Selly Oak and Number 11 Arts. Sense. No one left out of life. sense.org.uk